The sun beat down on the Sahel, baking the earth a dusty brown. For the people of Burkina Faso, life had always been a struggle against the elements. But in recent years, a new shadow had fallen across the land. Extremism, like a venomous serpent, had slithered across the borders, poisoning the peace. Villages once alive with laughter and the rhythms of daily life now lived in fear. Farmers, tending their fields, glanced nervously over their shoulders. The very fabric of society was fraying, threatened by an enemy that thrived on chaos and despair. In the heart of this turmoil, a young captain stepped forward. Ibrahim Traoré, a name that would soon be etched into the history of Burkina Faso, embodied the spirit of resilience that refused to be extinguished. He understood the plight of his people, their anxieties, their anger. He too shared their yearning for peace. Traoré was a soldier forged in the fires of adversity. He had witnessed firsthand the devastation wrought by the insurgents. He had seen the fear in the eyes of his countrymen. A bold, unconventional strategy was needed, one that would empower the citizens of Burkina Faso to defend themselves and reclaim their nation. Ibrahim Traoré, a name whispered with a mix of hope and uncertainty, was a product of Burkina Faso itself. Born in the rural heartland, he understood the rhythms of life in the villages, the quiet dignity of the farmers, the importance of community. He had joined the army not out of some thirst for power, but out of a deep-seated love for his nation and a desire to protect its people. His rise through the ranks had been steady, marked by both competence and courage. He had served in several of the country's volatile northern regions, witnessing firsthand the escalating violence and the devastating impact on communities. He saw how fear was paralyzing his people, how the insurgency was tearing apart the very fabric of their lives. Fighting a guerrilla insurgency required more than just firepower and manpower. To defeat them, Traoré knew he had to mobilize a different kind of force. The idea of the VDP, the Volontaires pour la Défense de la Patrie, was born out of necessity and a profound belief in the resilience of the Burkinabe people. Traoré envisioned a force that would complement the regular army, a force drawn from the very communities terrorized by the insurgency. These would be ordinary citizens, farmers, teachers, shopkeepers, all united by a common desire to protect their homeland. The VDP, with their intimate knowledge of the local area and their deep roots within communities, could serve as a vital link between the people and the security forces. They could provide intelligence, reassure civilians, and help to root out the insurgents who sought to hide among them. Arming civilians was controversial, raising concerns about potential abuses and the escalation of violence. But Traoré believed that the potential benefits outweighed the risks. Across the dusty plains and bustling marketplaces of Burkina Faso, a message began to spread, carried by the wind, whispered in hushed tones. Captain Traoré's call to action, a plea for unity and resistance, resonated deeply within the hearts of the Burkinabe people. This was not a distant conflict, waged by faceless soldiers in faraway lands. This was their fight. A fight for their homes, their families, their very way of life. The response was both immediate and overwhelming. From every corner of the nation, men and women, young and old, heeded the call. Farmers, who had spent their lives nurturing the land, set aside their plows and picked up arms. Teachers, who had dedicated themselves to shaping young minds, now prepared to defend their communities. There was a palpable sense of purpose in the air, a shared determination to reclaim their nation from the grip of terror. The task of transforming ordinary citizens into a cohesive and effective fighting force was immense, but it was a challenge that Captain Traoré and his officers embraced with unwavering commitment. Training camps, hastily erected in remote locations, became crucibles where raw courage was forged into disciplined strength. The VDP recruits, many of whom had never held a weapon before, underwent rigorous training in basic military tactics, weapons handling, and first aid. They learned to operate as a unit, to rely on each other, to face danger with courage and determination. The shared experience of hardship, the camaraderie forged in the heat of training, created a powerful bond among the volunteers. This shared sense of purpose transcended their differences, creating a powerful esprit de corps that would prove essential in the battles to come. The deployment of the VDP marked a turning point in the fight against terrorism in Burkina Faso. Dispersed across the vast countryside, embedded within their own communities, they acted as the eyes and ears of the regular army. providing vital intelligence, disrupting enemy movements, and reassuring a beleaguered population. Their intimate knowledge of the local terrain, their understanding of the enemy's tactics, and their deep ties to the community made them an invaluable asset in the fight against the insurgency. They knew the hidden paths, the watering holes, the patterns of daily life that the insurgents sought to exploit. The VDP's presence in villages and towns across Burkina Faso had a profound impact on the security situation. They were the guardians at the gates, the first line of defense against a shadowy enemy. The creation of the VDP had an electrifying effect on the morale of the Burkinabe people. For too long, they had felt like helpless bystanders, caught in the crossfire of a conflict they didn't understand and couldn't control. But now, with the formation of the VDP, they had a stake in the fight, a chance to defend their own communities, to reclaim their destiny. The sight of their fellow citizens, ordinary people who had answered the call to arms, patrolling the streets, manning checkpoints, and standing guard against the encroaching darkness, instilled a renewed sense of hope and defiance. The VDP, though lightly armed and often outnumbered, represented something much larger than themselves. The indomitable spirit of a people determined to protect their homeland. The early days of the VDP were marked by both triumph and tragedy. The volunteers, though eager to confront the enemy, were often outgunned and outmatched. They lacked the sophisticated weaponry, the advanced training, and the air support that the regular army enjoyed. Their victories, when they came, were hard-won, paid for in sweat, blood, and the lives of their comrades. But with each passing encounter, the VDP grew in experience and confidence. They learned to adapt their tactics to the enemy's methods, to exploit their knowledge of the local terrain, to use their agility and stealth to their advantage. The successes of the VDP, though often small in scale, had a disproportionate impact on the morale of both the insurgents and the civilian population. As the VDP gained experience and confidence, the tide of the conflict began to slowly turn. The insurgents, who had once enjoyed freedom of movement across vast swathes of the country, found their operations increasingly disrupted. Villages that had once lived in fear began to resist, emboldened by the presence of the VDP and their own determination to reclaim their lives. The regular army, initially skeptical of the idea of arming civilians, began to recognize the value of the VDP as a force multiplier. The government, sensing a shift in momentum, increased its support for the VDP, providing them with better equipment, training, and logistical support. The international community, too, began to take notice of the VDP and their impact on the conflict. Foreign governments, impressed by the courage and determination of the volunteers, provided financial and logistical assistance. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the savannah. In the village of Name of Village, redacted for security, a somber gathering commemorated fallen heroes. The VDP, though instrumental in stemming the tide of violence, had paid a heavy price for their courage. Each life lost, a son, a daughter, a father, a mother, a heavy weight on the soul of a nation. The air, thick with incense and the scent of freshly turned earth, vibrated with a mix of grief and pride. Mothers, draped in colorful fabrics, their faces etched with sorrow, clutched photos of sons lost too soon. Children, their eyes wide with a mix of fear and admiration, listened intently to tales of bravery whispered by elders. Yet the volunteers persevered, their determination fueled by a love for their homeland and a commitment to protecting their people. Despite the VDP's undeniable successes, whispers of doubt began to circulate, like tendrils of smoke rising from a smoldering fire. Concerns about the volunteers' training, their equipment, and their vulnerability to infiltration by the very enemy they fought cast a shadow over their achievements. Human rights groups, while acknowledging the VDP's commitment to protecting civilians, raised concerns about potential abuses, about the lack of accountability, about the risk of blurring the lines between civilian and combatant. Within Burkina Faso itself, a debate raged. Some, pointing to the rising body count, questioned the wisdom of arming civilians, arguing that it only fueled the cycle of violence. The future of the VDP, like the future of Burkina Faso itself, hung in the balance. The challenges were immense, the path forward fraught with uncertainty. Yet, amidst the violence and the doubt, a fragile hope persisted. Captain Traoré, his face etched with the weight of responsibility, remained steadfast in his belief that the VDP, were an integral part of the solution. He acknowledged the challenges, the risks, the sacrifices, but he also saw the courage, the determination, the unwavering commitment of the volunteers. The VDP, though just one piece of a complex puzzle, represented a glimmer of hope in a darkening world, a testament to the enduring belief that even in the face of overwhelming odds, ordinary people can make an extraordinary difference. The dust settled on the savannah, a silent witness to the struggle for Burkina Faso's soul. The VDP, born out of desperation, forged in the fires of conflict, had left an indelible mark on the nation's history. Their legacy, a complex tapestry of courage and sacrifice, of hope and uncertainty, would continue to shape the destiny of Burkina Faso for generations to come. The volunteers, ordinary citizens who had answered the call to arms, had proven that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit could triumph. They had stood as a bulwark against the forces of chaos, protecting their communities, their families, their way of life. Their sacrifices, etched in the hearts of a grateful nation, served as a powerful reminder of the true cost of freedom. Their story, a testament to the indomitable spirit of the Burkinabe people, offered a beacon of hope in a world increasingly riven by division and despair. The Burkina Faso that emerged from the crucible of conflict was a nation forever changed. The VDP, though conceived as a temporary measure, had sparked a profound transformation in the relationship between the people and their government, between citizens and security forces. The shared experience of sacrifice, the common struggle against a common enemy, had forged a new sense of national unity. The government, once seen as distant and detached from the realities of life in rural communities, had been forced to confront the root causes of the insurgency: poverty, inequality, and a lack of opportunity. The VDP had shown that true security could only be achieved by addressing these underlying issues, by empowering communities, by giving people a stake in their own future. The Burkinabe people, too, had undergone a profound transformation. They had faced their fears, confronted their enemies, and emerged from the crucible of conflict with a renewed sense of purpose and determination. The VDP had shown them that they were not helpless victims, but active participants in shaping their own destiny. The path ahead for Burkina Faso remained fraught with challenges. The scars of conflict ran deep, the memories of loss still fresh. The threat of extremism, though diminished, had not been extinguished. The journey towards lasting peace and stability would be long and arduous, demanding patience, perseverance, and an unwavering commitment from both the government and the people. Yet, amidst the uncertainty, there were also glimmers of hope. The VDP, though formally disbanded, had left behind a legacy of resilience and community self-reliance. The government, chastened by the experience of conflict, had begun to prioritize development and good governance. The international community, recognizing the importance of supporting fragile states, had pledged its continued assistance. The future of Burkina Faso lay in the hands of its people. The VDP had shown the way, demonstrating the power of unity, the importance of courage, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. It was now up to a new generation of Burkinabe leaders, inspired by the sacrifices of the past, to build a brighter future for their nation.